Okay, got it working. First of all, ignore my voice. I have strep throat. So the readings over the last 2 weeks have been very informative, and I'm going to share a few examples that stood out to me and how they relate to higher education or my work in higher education. So first, I'm going to talk about the democratic conception in education readings chapter. This chapter really stood out to me and provided a lot of useful information. Lauder's chapter discusses educational theories in three eras, and the first being Plato's era. And although we view his theory as inaccurate for reasons such as that a society does not remain unchanged, I still see parallels between the theory and society today. So Plato's educational theory, it says society is stably organized when all individuals are doing what they're capable of doing in such a way as to be useful to others or to contribute to society as a whole. That is the business of education, to discover these aptitudes and progressively to train for to train them for social use. His starting point is that the organization of society depends ultimately upon knowledge of the end of existence. His ideas were that if an education could be given to sift individuals into discovering what they're good for and supplying a method of assigning each person to a work in life that fits him or her, and if each individual did his or her own part and never transgressed, the order and unity of the whole world would be maintained. However, the society in which Plato lived was so undemocratic that he couldn't work out a solution for the problem whose terms he clearly saw, and he affirmed that the place of the individual in society should not be determined by birth or wealth or any conventional status, but by his own nature as discovered in the process of education. Although not Plato's intent, he lacked the perception of uniqueness among individuals and didn't recognize that societies may change, and thus his doctrine of limited powers and classes came in net effect to the idea of subordination of individuality. And although most of us would agree that we think that people are best suited in society and jobs or organizations or groups or etc., that they feel the most comfortable and happy in, we can see that Plato's theory of lumping individuals and their original powers into a few marked off classes was not the best strategy. So, how does this relate to higher education today? The first thing I thought about after reading the section on Plato's ideas regarding lumping individuals based on their aptitudes is that institutions of higher education still attempt to do this today. How many of you have ever completed a personality test or met with an advisor and took a career assessment, hence aptitude test, to determine where your skills and interests were? And although I understand that everything can change, like society, interests, etc., I think it's very interesting that even in ancient history, Plato's ideas were focused on individual skills and interests and how they could contribute to society as a whole. And also, as leaders in education, I think it is important that we make sure that our students understand that their place in society is not determined by their birth or wealth or parent status, but yet everyone has opportunities in our great country to contribute to society in a way that they find fulfilling, whether it be a doctor, a teacher, or any other career that they want to do. So next, I'm going to talk about the Principles of Transformative Education article, which stood out to me as a future leader in higher education. The author describes 12 principles of transformative education, which are intended to help define a system of education that transforms older, obsolete models of human learning to create a sustainable, diverse, conscientious, global citizen with the ability to problem solve complex issues for a more equitable and viable world. And the 12 principles are human rights, sustainability, the importance of value systems, morality, ethics, and spirit, for diversity, economic and social justice or equity, peace, education, and conflict resolution, holistic education, community-based learning, and indigenous wisdom, simulation or experiential learning, incorporating new brain neuroscience and skills of critical thinking, use of technology for greater connection, not alienation, and sanctity of human learning and life. The first 5 principles are the core principles of transformative education, and the last 7 principles are specific elements that are essential to the concepts of transformative education as it is practiced pedagogically. I think practicing several of the 12 principles of transformative education are important to leaders in higher education. However, I can't say I relate or agree with all of the 12 principles. So as a result of transformative education, I think that more students will be able to relate to higher education leaders, and these relationships can have a lasting impact on both the student and the higher ed leader. Just to discuss a few of the 5 core principles, I think it is important that all students feel equal and that they are able to achieve the highest education desirable, regardless of race, gender, or economic status. And this will help us in turn transform education into a diverse population, which is the 4th principle. So where I work, which is MCG at Augusta University, diversity is a hot topic lately. And a few years ago, the admission department was tasked with raising the number of Hispanic students by 5%, which being the only public medical school in Georgia and in our geographic region, I think is very important. Also, I think sustainability is important in higher education to both leaders and students. It's our job as leaders to help students mature and learn how to become productive members of our society and help our world and future generations become better. I think it's important as leaders and advisors that we open up conversations about sustainability and help individuals realize their potential impact on sustainability. When I think of sustainability, I think of collaboration and the ways that I see this taking place at MCG in higher education. For example, the first year of medical school was recently changed to pass-fail grading to promote a less competitive environment and allow a diverse student body. And when I say diverse, I mean in terms of undergraduate majors of our students, because now, for example, art majors have a chance to catch up with science majors in the first year of medical school and really learn all that science background that they don't start out with compared to chemistry and biology majors. Additionally, interprofessional education, also known as IPE, is a hot topic in medical education, and our university is making sure that medical students interact with other health professionals such as nurses and PAs and dentists throughout their education so that they are prepared to do so in the real world. And lastly, I'm going to discuss the differences chapter in the Theory Toolbox book. I agree with the authors that we automatically relate to certain characteristics, and whether we realize it or mean to or not, we negotiate and account for these differences all the time. This reminds me of a point I made regarding a video from our cognitive issues in higher ed class that we're also taking right now. In the video, the authors were asked about tips for a white person teaching a cultural diversity class and not coming off as they know what it's like to be a black person or an Hispanic. And I thought this question was a good one, although I didn't believe it was answered well. And I don't know if I'll ever teach a diversity course or work in diversity affairs, although I'm certainly open to. However, I think as leaders in higher education, we need to understand that not all students will be able to relate to us, and I think open dialogue with them will help to build a relationship and help build trust. Additionally, I think that differences are what make us so unique in terms of education, much more diverse than ever. I hope leaders in higher education continue to advocate for diverse students so that opportunities for all individuals will continue to become more equal. It's important for higher education leaders to understand differences and learn how to treat all students equally. So these were 3 of the topics that really stood out to me, which were the Plato's theory regarding lumping individuals based on their aptitudes and helping them to reach careers in their life and help society based on these aptitudes, and then the transformative education article, and last, the differences chapter. So that concludes what stood out to me and these topics and how these topics relate to higher education or my work in higher education. Thanks.